They say pain builds character, but in my case, it built a masterpiece of revenge. She mocked me when I was broken, laughed at my lowest moment like it was comedy. I didn't shout back. Because nothing is louder than success served with silence and a smile. I never thought laughter could hurt until hers did. It used to sound like sunlight, bright, effortless, the kind of sound that could pull me out of my own darkness. I used to live for that laughter. But I didn't realize how cruel it could become once it stopped being shared with me and started being directed at me. My name's Cale Renner, and if you've ever been laughed at when you were at your lowest, you already know how this story begins. I met Alina Crest during a freelance project. She was charm-wrapped in confidence, someone who could turn a crowded room into her personal stage. I wasn't flashy or loud like her. I was just a guy who loved creating things that spoke when I couldn't. She used to say my art felt like music on canvas. And I believed her. I believed everything she said back then. We built a life together that felt like it was stitched out of hope and late-night promises. For a while I thought I'd finally found the one who saw me, not just what I could become, but who I was. But love has this strange habit of fading quietly. You don't hear it live, it just stops echoing back. I started noticing little things. The way she rolled her eyes when I talked about my next design project. The way she'd check her phone mid-conversation. The way her laughter, once full of warmth, began to carry a hint of mockery. It wasn't one big fight that broke us, it was death by 1,000 small dismissals. At dinners, she'd joke about my artist struggles in front of friends and everyone would laugh, including me, sometimes. I laughed because I didn't want to look weak, but inside, every chuckle chipped away a piece of who I was. I began to realize that she wasn't laughing with me anymore, she was laughing at me. That's when I stopped painting for a while. My hands felt heavy, my colors lost meaning. I told myself it was just a phase, that she was just stressed, that love sometimes takes the shape of sarcasm. But I was wrong. Love doesn't humiliate. Love doesn't make you feel small. I didn't know it yet, but that quiet humiliation, the one that burned but didn't bleed, was planting something inside me. Something that would grow into the most beautiful revenge I could have ever imagined. It started small, like a hairline fracture in glass, invisible at first, but spreading fast once the pressure built. Alina's laughter changed tone. It wasn't melodic anymore. It was sharper, like a knife hidden behind a smile. She'd still say she loved me, but her words carried a weight that pressed down instead of lifting me up. The warmth in her eyes began to cool, replaced by something distant. Something that looked like disappointment disguised as humor. I remember one morning clearly I showed her a new design I'd been working on. It was a concept for a local art exhibit, a piece that represented resilience after failure. She looked at it for a few seconds, tilted her head, and said, "It's nice, Cale, but maybe you should think about getting a real job before painting emotions." She laughed afterward, like it was a joke, but that laugh echoed long after she left the room. It wasn't the words that hurt, it was the ease with which she said them. Like she had already stopped believing in me. The distance grew in quiet ways. Her late nights at work became more frequent. Her phone was always face down, her tone defensive when I asked simple questions. I tried to convince myself that it was my insecurity talking. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But then there were the public moments, the ones that stripped away my pride. At a family dinner, surrounded by her cousins and coworkers, she brought up my failed client deal, the one that had left me nearly broke. "He's an artist," she said, smirking, "but apparently art doesn't pay bills in the real world." Everyone laughed, and I did too, or at least I pretended to. My chest felt hollow. That was the night something inside me cracked for good. On the ride home, she hummed along to a song while I stared out the window. Realizing that I was sitting next to someone who no longer loved me, someone who might have never understood me at all, I didn't argue. I didn't shout. I just stayed quiet, because I knew words couldn't save what was already breaking. And in that silence, a truth started whispering to me that sometimes love doesn't end in fire. It ends in laughter that cuts deeper than any blade. Some betrayals don't come crashing through the door. They slip in quietly, wearing the same perfume and smile you fell in love with. By the time you notice, they've already replaced your peace with doubt. For me, it began with Alina's new boss, Dax Varon. The name itself felt too polished, too charming, the kind of man who smelled like confidence and expensive lies. She'd talk about him often, always with that spark in her voice I hadn't heard in months, a spark that used to be reserved for me. At first, I tried not to care. I told myself she was just inspired by someone successful. I even encouraged her to learn from him. But then her stories turned personal. Dax understands drive, she'd say. You'd like him, Kale. But she never invited me to meet him. I started noticing things, the way she'd dress up a little more before going to meetings, the way she'd come home smelling faintly of cologne that wasn't mine. I wanted to believe I was imagining it. Love makes you blind, but denial makes you willingly close your eyes. One night, I couldn't sleep. She'd fallen asleep on the couch, her phone glowing beside her. I wish I could say I hesitated before checking it, but I didn't. I scrolled through her messages, my heart thudding with each word I read. Last night was perfect. Wish I could see you again before work. Don't worry, he won't suspect anything. My world went quiet. Not the kind of quiet that brings peace, the kind that drowns you in your own thoughts. When I looked at her sleeping there, I didn't see the woman I loved. I saw a stranger using my trust as her pillow. The next morning, I confronted her. My voice trembled, but I stayed calm. I told her I knew. She didn't deny it. She just laughed. That same cruel, echoing laugh. You can't even afford revenge, she said, smirking. And in that moment, something inside me stopped hurting, because I realized pain could be turned into power if you let it. She walked out that day, suitcase in hand, pride in her eyes. I didn't try to stop her. I just stood there, memorizing that laugh, the one that would one day make me famous. After she left, the silence in the apartment didn't feel peaceful, it felt haunted. Every corner still carried her laughter, like a cruel ghost that refused to leave. Her coffee mug sat on the counter, lipstick still on the rim. Her perfume lingered on the pillow beside me, fading a little more each night. But the emptiness she left behind, that didn't fade. It grew louder. Days blurred into each other. I'd wake up at noon, stare at the ceiling, and wonder how someone could destroy your world and sleep soundly afterward. The messages from friends slowed down. They didn't know what to say anymore, and I didn't have the energy to pretend I was okay. I'd scroll through social media and see her smiling in new pictures, new clothes, new places, new man. Dax, the man who stole my peace and probably didn't even think about it twice. And her caption? Happiness is when you finally let go. Let go. She ripped me apart and called it letting go. I stopped painting. The brushes lay untouched, stiff with dried color. My sketchbook gathered dust, its pages still filled with the art she once called brilliant. Now, it all looked meaningless, childish even. My heart was heavy, but not in the way that makes you cry. It was the kind of heaviness that just sits inside you, quietly suffocating you one breath at a time. I tried distractions. Movies, late-night walks, drowning myself in meaningless work. But no matter what I did, her laughter echoed in my head like background noise I couldn't mute. Every time I tried to sleep, my mind replayed the last thing she said. You can't even afford revenge. I had nothing left to give. Not love, not anger, not even tears. Just silence. One night, while cleaning the mess of my desk, I found an old drawing, a portrait of her laughing, one I made when love still felt safe. I stared at it for a long time. That's when something inside me shifted. Not rage, not hate, just clarity. She'd taken everything I had, but she forgot the one thing she could never steal: my art. And that night, I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to destroy her. I was going to outshine her. I was going to make revenge look beautiful. It's strange how pain can become your teacher once you stop fighting it. After weeks of living like a ghost, I woke up one morning and felt something different. An ache that didn't want pity anymore. It wanted purpose. I sat at my desk, surrounded by the ruins of what used to be my life, and there it was again, her portrait. That old drawing of Alina laughing. Her smile once felt like light. Now it looked like mockery frozen in time. For the first time, I didn't look away. I picked up my brush. At first, my hands trembled. The lines were messy, the colors unbalanced. But there was something raw about it, something honest. I stayed up all night, painting over that old portrait. Stroke after stroke, the laughter that haunted me turned into art that screamed back. That was the birth of my first piece, the laugh that broke me. From there, I couldn't stop. Every sleepless night became a new canvas. Every scar found its color. My pain turned into a collection for paintings, each one telling a story. Trust, betrayal, silence, and rebirth. I didn't paint for fame or forgiveness. I painted because it was the only way to breathe again. When I finally posted the first one online, I didn't expect anything. I just wanted to let it go. But by morning, my inbox was flooded. People were sharing it, writing comments like, "I feel this and this saved me." My heartbreak had become their mirror. My pain had found its audience. Within weeks, art pages and blogs picked it up. A gallery reached out, asking if I'd consider exhibiting the full series. I almost laughed because the very thing she mocked me for, the hobby that wasn't worth her respect, had suddenly become my redemption. The day I stood in front of my paintings at that gallery, something in me healed. I realized I didn't need her apology. I didn't need revenge that burned. I just needed to turn the ashes into something that could light someone else's way. People say revenge is sweet, but for me, revenge was silent. It looked like art hanging on white walls, glowing under warm lights. It looked beautiful. The night of my exhibition felt unreal, like walking into a dream built from everything that once broke me. The gallery was glowing soft lights, murmurs of admiration. People sipping wine and staring at my pain turned into beauty. My name, Cale Renner, written in bold on the wall behind me. The same name she once mocked for chasing a useless dream. I stood there quietly, watching strangers connect with the emotions I'd bled into every stroke. But deep down, I knew this night wasn't just about art. It was about closure. Then I saw her. Alina walked in, arm in arm with Dax. Both dressed to impress, both wearing smiles that didn't reach their eyes. For a moment, my breath caught. Not because I missed her, but because it felt poetic. She looked around, oblivious to the fact that every painting in that room was born from her laughter, her betrayal, her cruelty. The irony was flawless. Her eyes fell on the centerpiece, the laugh that broke me. A haunting portrait of a woman mid-laugh, with faint cracks running across her painted face. She froze. The color drained from her cheeks. Dax whispered something, but she didn't answer. She just stared. Maybe she saw herself in it. Maybe she finally understood what she'd done. When our eyes met, I smiled. Not the smile of a man seeking revenge, but the smile of someone who had already won. She approached me slowly, her voice trembling. "You painted me." I nodded. "You made me." She blinked, stunned, her perfect composure shattering. The crowd, oblivious to the tension, started clapping. Someone had just recognized me as the artist behind the viral series. Cameras flashed. Reporters asked for photos. Lena stepped back, lost in the noise. For the first time, she looked small. Before leaving, she whispered, "You really did it." And I said quietly, "You finally made me famous." She walked away without another word. Dax followed, his expression unreadable. I watched them go, not with anger, but with peace. My revenge wasn't loud. It didn't destroy her life. It just reminded her that the man she laughed at built something immortal from the ruins she left behind. That night, I realized revenge doesn't need fire to burn. Sometimes it just needs a frame and a spotlight. Karma doesn't rush, it waits for the perfect moment to arrive, quiet and deliberate. I didn't have to chase revenge after that night. It came to me naturally, wrapped in poetic justice. Months passed since the exhibition. My art career blossomed. Interviews came one after another, and my work started selling for prices I once couldn't even dream of. Every success felt like another brushstroke of redemption. But I wasn't keeping score. Not anymore. I had already made peace with the past. Or at least, I thought I hadn't till her name appeared on my phone again. It was a short message from Alina. "Can we talk?" I didn't reply. But curiosity is a strange thing. Later that week, I heard from an old mutual friend that Dax's company had collapsed in a fraud scandal. He was under investigation, and Alina had lost everything: her job, her apartment, her status. Suddenly, the woman who once laughed at my pain was facing her own version of it. Life has a way of creating symmetry. A few days later, another message came. Kale, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. I miss what we had. For a long time, I just stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to be cruel, to send her words back twisted with mockery. But that would mean she still had power over me, and she didn't. So I typed slowly, choosing each word like a brushstroke. The man you left doesn't exist anymore. Then I hit send. No anger, no satisfaction, just peace. That night, I sat in my studio, surrounded by my paintings, the same ones that carried pieces of my pain, and realized that every color, every tear, every heartbreak had been worth it. She gave me my first wound, but also my first masterpiece. People often ask me if I ever forgave her. I tell them there was nothing to forgive. Some people are just lessons wrapped in chaos. She laughed at my pain, but in the end, I turned that pain into something eternal. Revenge, I've learned, doesn't always scream. Sometimes it paints quietly, smiles softly, and lets the world do the talking. Because when karma finally paints its picture, it's always beautiful. They say pain fades with time, but I don't think it does. I think it transforms. It changes its shape, its color, its purpose. My pain didn't disappear. It just learned how to speak differently. Through my art, it found a voice that no longer trembled. It stopped begging to be understood and started demanding to be seen. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Revenge doesn't always mean destroying someone. Sometimes it means rebuilding yourself so beautifully that they can't look at you without feeling the weight of what they lost. I didn't ruin her life. I didn't need to. Life handled that part on its own. Karma has an artist's patience. It paints slowly, but perfectly. So if you've ever been laughed at, humiliated, or made to feel like you weren't enough, don't chase their apology. Don't chase their approval. Let your silence grow roots. Let your pain become something breathtaking. Because one day, the same people who mocked your scars will watch you turn them into stars. I'm not the man who begged to be loved anymore. I'm the man who learned how to love himself enough to never beg again. That's what real revenge looks like: peace. If this story touched you, if you've ever felt like your heartbreak was the end, remember it might just be your beginning. Like, share, and subscribe. Because maybe your pain isn't a punishment. Maybe it's a promise that one day you'll rise too. And when you do, make sure you make it look beautiful.